That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Pig, the directorial debut of Michael Sarnoski, which Neon is distributing July 16th, 2021. There were rumors several weeks ago that it would be premiering potentially at the 2021 Cannes Film Festival. It looks like that didn't happen.
This is their directorial debut?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. I did like this movie.
Same.
I like Nicolas Cage's performance.
Mm-hmm.
The story is a bit complicated. But, that was my stomach. I didn't fart on camera. But yeah, what did you think?
I did really like it. It takes, I think, trying to suss out what the tone is gave me some pause getting into it, but there's a particular moment we can talk about later where there's a sudden click and I was really on board.
Yeah. Okay, the basic story is Nicolas Cage plays a man named Rob.
Robin Feld, to be exact.
He lives out in the woods. He's a recluse.
Outside of Portland.
He has a pig, and this pig helps him find truffles, which he sells to a young man named Amir, who's played by
Alex Wolff.
So we see Amir going to Rob like on Thursdays to pick up truffles. When one day, like late in the night, a group of people break into Rob's house and steal his pig. And of course, Rob is distraught. So when he sees Amir, he's like, you have to help me. Because I think Rob tries to like drive off in his truck, but the truck breaks down and Rob doesn't have a cell phone. So Amir reluctantly agrees to help him and they go into the city. This is where things get a little crazy because apparently, okay, so what do we know about Rob? Rob's wife had passed like 15 years prior, and that's what drove him into reclusion. In his
seclusion?
Reclusion's not a word?
He's a recluse?
But reclusion's not a word?
You might have to check that.
I like it. Rob used to be like a very famous chef in Portland. Right? Okay.
Reby Jackson.
This is a mess. But the thing that kind of goes off the rails is apparently there's like this underground fight club involving culinary workers, which took me all the way out. But I guess it's kind of necessary because of who steals the pig, which, just to kind of wrap things up, we find out Amir's dad, who's played by
Adam Arkin, who's the son of Alan Arkin.
Oh, is like... He's like the Tony Soprano of the Portland culinary scene, apparently. So Amir sells like finer ingredients to restaurants, which they make it seem like it's this hustle, like akin to like drug dealing. And his dad is like the kingpin. So Amir's kind of like small time doing his little restaurants, but his dad has like the lock on Portland fine dining. And we're also made to understand that his dad, the Arkin man, is dangerous in some way. He stole Rob's pig. For what reason, I don't know.
Well, I think that it's implied that he wants to one-up his son, because this is Amir's access to Rob with these truffles is kind of giving him a leg up, probably in a very minor way, but it seems like his explanation is to squash out his own competition with his son.
But that's so weird because put a pin in it because I want to talk about that. But anyway, we find out that the dad stole the pig because he wants to one-up his son. Rob wants his pig back. And the dad is like, you're not getting your pig back. I'll give you $20,000, $21,000 I think he says. And then you're going to forget about this. Don't you ever come to my house or it's going to be trouble. Rob finds out through Amir because earlier on in the film, Amir relays a story about his parents. So his asshole dad and then his mom who is living like in hospice on life support because the dad refuses to pull the plug.
That might have been from a suicide attempt.
Oh, I forgot about that. Anyway, Amir relays a story that like the best meal his parents ever had was at some restaurant in Portland and his parents talked about it forever. And it just so happens Rob prepared that meal So in an effort to appeal to the dad, like, please give me back my pig, Rob makes that meal, like surprises the dad with the meal. The dad's eating it, starts crying, and then Rob is like, please, please give me back my pig. And that's when the dad opens up and says, listen, those crackheads I sent to your little cabin in the woods to steal your pig, they roughed that pig up too much and your pig's dead. So of course Rob is devastated. And he just moves on. We see him go back to his cabin alone. You know, we see his little pig's bed empty. The end. Okay.
So it's broken into 2 parts, kind of like a menu.
3 parts.
3 parts, kind of like a menu, basically, which I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Why don't you start with your notes?
Oh, where to begin? Okay, so first off, Nicolas Cage's performance is quite subdued. And he looks crazy, but I don't think in a way that's laughable. Like, I actually thought he fit the character well, and his portrayal is very subdued and quiet.
Every now and then somebody asks, like, do you need medical attention?
Oh, yeah. He gets beat up kind of earlier on in this, like, underground fight club, so he's, like, bruised, blood all over, and that fool doesn't clean his face till the end. He even prepares that meal covered in blood, which I thought was ridiculous. But, yeah, there's one scene in particular when Nicolas Cage's character goes to, like, this very fancy restaurant called Finway, I think.
Eurydice.
Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Oh, I wrote... Anyway, it's the first restaurant he goes to with Amir. Like, they go for lunch because he thinks he'll be able to get answers there. And he asks to speak to the chef. And we find out that that chef used to be a sous chef under Nicolas Cage's character, but he fired him because he was late and wasn't doing a good job. And there's a point in that conversation at the restaurant where Nicolas Cage's character asks him about, like, his dreams. And I remember when you worked for me, you said you wanted to open up a pub and you had this dream dish you wanted to make, and now you're doing this fine dining bullshit for all these rich yuppies making deconstructed whatever that doesn't taste good. No one cares about you or this food. They're just here because it's trendy. Why are you doing this? I thought that was very well done.
That's the click I was talking about in the film for me, where because there's an earlier monologue between Alex Wolff and Nicolas Cage, which doesn't work quite as well. But that's where we learn the story of the dinner, and then Cage has this kind of long monologue about how we could all be swept off a cliff and be at the bottom of the ocean, and talking about natural disasters. That doesn't work quite as well, but everything, like all the colors in the room, blend together real well here, because at the same sense, I kind of dug there's this Lynchian underbelly of the food and beverage industry in Portland with all these weird characters. But this man who he used to work for is kind of laughing uncomfortably, almost hysterically, in response to this very placid, serene, kind of moving monologue from Cage in that moment. But the line I wrote down from that is, we don't get a lot of things to really care about. And it's there where I think Pig gets on this, at least for me, this kind of emotional wavelength where I was hooked.
Yeah. Just going down my notes. Hearing Pig's scream is so creepy.
Yeah.
And the scene where the pig is stolen from Rob was a good scene, just because, like, hearing it was unnerving. I was distracted by the relationship between Amir, the wolf guy, and his dad. Because the dad seems to... I mean, he lives in this big, beautiful, well-manicured home. He's clearly winning. And then I'm thinking, like, oh, isn't the idea of most dads is that their sons become self-sufficient and ideally follow in their own footsteps? And that's exactly what Amir's doing. Like, he's doing what his dad does. And he's trying to be self-sufficient. It didn't quite connect for me why the dad was trying to destroy his son. Also, when Rob, Nicolas Cage's character, first goes to, like, the fight club, the underground fight club, and the people are like, you know, your name has no value around here, blah, blah, blah. I never really understood, what did he do that everyone turned their back on him? Did you understand why?
He almost is like this messiah, like, figure to this very particular community that I think somebody with that kind of power, when they leave behind people that leave them and probably depended on, or love them and or depended on them. So I would imagine that in the wake of his destruction, which was, of course, due to the death of his wife, which we're not really clued into. Yeah, to me, I don't mind the enigma of that because we just don't know. And we don't need to know. And going back to your other note about the father and son, where the few details we are given about them, there's some dysfunction there. Like his parents, sounds like they mostly hated each other, and his mother might have tried to attempt suicide. Amir tells us that he did, and then we have that touching scene where he's talking to her outside her door while she's on life support. And to me, the father seems like somebody that's very much trying to control his son and manipulate his son, because that's maybe all he has left for himself to do.
Sure.
So I wasn't distracted by that because people are terrible. But
that's all I have.
Oh, so I was originally concerned. I'm very surprised with how I ended up feeling about this film, because initially, based on the description and the cast, I was thinking this is going to be kind of like John Wick with a pig, or like Nicolas Cage's Mandy recently, which I did really like. You haven't seen, you should. Of note, and I hope you flash the poster for this, there's a 2018 film starring Gerard Depardieu called Saving My Pig.
Okay.
You have all kinds of preconceived notions, I think, about what this film is going to be, but I think instead the restaurant named Eurydice is also key to where the screenwriters Vanessa Block and Sarnoski are going with this, because from Greek mythology, Orpheus and Eurydice, the tale of Orpheus going down to hell to Hades to save Eurydice, is he turns around to make sure she's following, and then part of the deal is he can't turn around and loses her forever. But this notion of kind of having to go back into the hell of your past to find a loved object or a loved thing is kind of what's going on. So I found it very touching to see Cage going around interacting with all these people, such as the old restaurant turned bakery that he owned. And then it ends, I think, quite really beautifully on, there's a tape that he tries to play early on, which is, we're led to believe it's his wife's voice on it, and he plays it at the very end, and it's her doing a cover of Bruce Springsteen's I'm on Fire. I'm not the greatest fan of the boss, but based on, I think, growing up and who he appealed to in my life, but I'm on Fire is that one of those haunting, eerie, enigmatic songs that kind of transcends, I think, even where it comes from, and there are a lot of great covers of it, but I don't know, I liked it. Wolff, who you know from Hereditary, and you've seen his brother Nat Wolff and a bunch of stuff, he was giving me Jason Schwartzman vibes, and I don't know if it's because of the Cage Coppola milieu that I was thinking of, but it seemed like at one point in time that would have been Schwartzman, but I think that's all I have.
What would you give this film?
3.5 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5.
Okay.
I would recommend it, though. All right, bye.
Bye.